One of the most unexplained and bizarre and unexpected developments in cable news took place last week when Fox, in a very cursory statement, unceremoniously announced that the Tucker Carlson program, which was not only the highest rated program currently on Fox, but the highest rated program in the history of cable news, the history of the medium, as of Friday night before, would no longer appear on the program any longer. It was terminated. Fox was done with Tucker Carlson and his program. They added insult to injury by issuing the most stinting and ungenerous statement possible, the stingiest words imaginable, essentially saying we thank Tucker for his service to our network and wish him luck in his future endeavors. No attempt at all to explain to the millions of people that Fox has spent tons of money cultivating over the years to watch Tucker's show why it is that their favorite host, the person whom they most trust, has just simply disappeared from the Fox airwaves. No respect for the viewers, nothing but contempt for them, actually. Just announcing in a short note that he was gone, and then asking Brian Kilmeade, who was in a very difficult position, the host of Fox and Friends, to guest host the show Monday evening. And they gave him apparently about 12 seconds at the start of the show for him to say, essentially, you probably heard Fox and Tucker have parted ways, and Tucker's a friend of mine and always will be, and now on to the news. So the entire episode has been shrouded in mystery because Fox has said nothing about why this has happened. And Tucker issued a 2-minute video in which he essentially vowed that he will continue to always tell the truth. He said that if you do tell the truth, you pay a price, you will end up suffering, which is absolutely true. But there wasn't a single hint of criticism at any Fox executive or Fox News itself in that video. Almost immediately following that video, Fox began leaking to the media that it had compiled a dossier on Tucker, that it was prepared to unleash a nuclear war arsenal against him in the event that Tucker goes nuclear on Fox. And that makes sense. When I left The Intercept, I not only announced I was leaving The Intercept, but I condemned them in very vehement terms because I felt an obligation to my readers, not just to announce in a cursory note that I was leaving, but given the media outlet was founded on my name and I had been defending it since 2013, I felt an obligation to explain what I thought had gone so wrong inside that institution that I felt compelled to leave. And as a result, The Intercept then turned around and attacked me and my character and made allegations against me, which I completely expected and thought was fair. If I was going to attack them, I thought it was totally expected that they were going to attack me back. And they did, and I never minded, and I thought that was fine. But in this case, Tucker left or was fired and didn't utter a word of criticism. He didn't tell his audience not to watch Fox. He didn't tell his audience or anybody else that this was Fox selling out or trying to appease liberal public opinion. He just issued a 2-minute video after 3 days of silence, basically saying, I'm not going anywhere. I'll let you know what it is that I'm doing. That was it. And ever since, there has been an avalanche of leaks clearly coming from the highest levels of Fox News that are not designed to shed light on why Fox fired Tucker. They're designed to destroy Tucker Carlson's character and reputation forever by branding him a white supremacist, a racist, a misogynist, a liar. And to do so, they are partnering with the very liberal media outlets that have been most bent on Fox's destruction for years, starting with the New York Times. So let's look today at this incredibly new escalation, this significant escalation in Fox's attack on the person who, until about 2 weeks ago, by all appearances, has been somebody beloved by the Murdoch family because he made them so much money and because Lachlan Murdoch believed, Rupert Murdoch's son who runs Fox, that Tucker was a very respectable face for the network. I have tried doing a lot of reporting on finding out the real reason why Fox fired Tucker. I obviously know a lot of people at Fox. I know Tucker well. He's a friend of mine. He's become a friend of mine over the years. I know other people at Fox who are at Fox, who have been at Fox. Nobody knows the real reason. People can speculate. There are little clues here and there. But the real story of why Fox decided to fire its top-rated host and risk what has happened and what everyone knew would happen, which is a radical decline in their ratings in prime time, maybe they'll recover, maybe they won't, is a story that really no one seems to know. And it is amazing to watch this war now being waged on Tucker's character by the people for whom he has loyally worked for the last 6 years. So let's look at what they did today. Here is the New York Times article, and there you see it on the screen. The headline is, Carlson's tax that alarmed Fox leaders. Quote, "It's not how white men fight." Now, you can tell from the headline that the New York Times is purporting not to have gotten a hold of a tax that makes Tucker look bad, although they did. That could have come from anywhere. That could have come from a low-level Fox person. It could have come from someone inside Dominion's law firm or Fox's law firm, or who knows. When there's litigation of this kind between Dominion and Fox and emails are flying around, anyone can get access to emails and leak them. It's impossible to say for sure who did it. What is so amazing about this New York Times article is it is purporting to gain insight, to describe insight into how the Fox board of directors viewed this text and the thought process that led them to fire Tucker, which could have only come from the board of directors itself. No one else would have the ability to convince the New York Times to publish claims about what the Fox board of directors are thinking other than people on the board of directors of Fox or at the highest levels of Fox News. Fox management, Suzanne Scott, or Lachlan Murdoch himself, or someone on the board. That is where this story came from. That is what is so amazing about it. It is confirmation that Fox is on this warpath against him. There's the subheadline, quote, "The discovery of the text message contributed to a chain of events that ultimately led to Tucker Carlson's firing." It's a story by 3 different New York Times reporters, Jeremy Peters, Michael Schmidt, and Jim Rittenberg. Let's take a look at what it says. Quote, "A text message sent by Tucker Carlson that set off a panic at the highest levels of Fox on the eve of its billion-dollar defamation trial showed its most popular host sharing his private inflammatory views about violence and race. The discovery of the message contributed to a chain of events that ultimately led to Mr. Carlson's firing. The text alarmed the Fox board." How would they know that that text alarmed the Fox board unless someone on the Fox board told the New York Times, "This is what alarmed us"? The text alarmed the Fox board, which saw the message a day before Fox was set to defend itself against Dominion before a jury. The board grew concerned that the message could become public at trial when Mr. Carlson was on the stand, creating a sensational and damaging moment that would raise broader questions about the company. Now let me just stop here and explain why this makes no sense to me. So, first of all, it is far from clear why a private text that we're about to show you, that Tucker Carlson wrote, that was intended to be private, where he actually talks about him watching a video of 3 white Trump supporters ganging up on an Antifa protester and beating him to a pulp, and the feelings that he had watching that, including the fact that he was at first finding himself rooting for the Antifa person to have the crap kicked out of him, and then he realized that's not how he wants to go through life, feeling that that's not a humanitarian sensation, that even this Antifa person, despite hating his politics, and maybe even him, has a family, has a mother, has a father, has siblings, who all of whom would be in deep mourning and grief if he were actually killed. And he said to himself, if I succumb to these temptations, I will be as bad as him. He also said in there that ganging up on people this way is a dishonorable thing to do. It's not how white people fight. That's what made the text so inflammatory. Why would this text possibly be admissible in a lawsuit that Dominion brought against Fox claiming defamation regarding Fox's allegations by some hosts or the airing of some claims that Dominion voting machines were used to defraud the election? It's extremely unlikely that this text would be admissible. The idea that they fear that this text would emerge as part of the trial is extremely unbelievable to me. But even if it were the case that they feared that this email might emerge during the trial, they settled the lawsuit with Dominion. There was no trial. And they fired him after that. So when they fired him, there was no concern that this would emerge as part of the trial. This version makes no sense. Maybe they feared this would come out in some other way, but ironically, it came out because someone at Fox clearly gave it to the New York Times. And why? Why would you do that? The Times article goes on. The day after the discovery, the board, look at how much insight they have into what the board of Fox was thinking and doing. Again, you can only get that if the board went to the New York Times and said, let us tell you why we decided to fire Tucker, because we discovered he's a unreconstructed racist. We didn't know that before. We only learned it in the past couple weeks. When we learned it, we decided to fire him. That's what Fox is saying to the public about Tucker Carlson through the New York Times. The day after the discovery, the board told Fox executives it was bringing in an outside law firm to conduct an investigation into Mr. Carlson's conduct. The text message added to a growing number of internal issues involving Mr. Carlson that led the company's leadership to conclude he was more of a problem than an asset and had to go, according to several people with knowledge of the decision. Again, those are people inside Fox at high levels of Fox News. This leak would not be happening without the authorization of Lachlan Murdoch and Suzanne Scott and the highest levels of Fox. Why, if you're going to leak this, do you go to the New York Times to do it? In other messages, says the article, Tucker had referred to women, including a senior Fox executive, in crude and misogynistic terms. The message about the fight also played a role in the company's decision to settle with Dominion for $787.5 million, the highest known payout in a defamation case. The text message came to the attention of Fox's board of directors and even some senior executives only last month, on the Sunday before the trial was set to begin, according to two people with knowledge of Fox's internal deliberations. At the time, Fox negotiators were entering discussions about an out-of-court settlement ahead of the swearing in of what was shaping up to be a diverse jury. The next day, the board told Fox's leadership about its plan to have the law firm Wachtell, Lipton, Rosen and Katz, a firm at which I used to work for about 18 months after law school, by the way, to investigate Mr. Carlson. That disclosure set up the possibility that there could be a continuing investigation into what was behind Mr. Carlson's messages at the same time as a trial, and he was serving as its top host in prime time. Fox has not commented about Mr. Carlson's ouster last week beyond an initial statement. Look at this lie. This is the game they play. Fox has not commented about Mr. Carlson's ouster last week beyond an initial statement. Everything I just read you was Fox commenting, just doing it in the slimiest way possible, anonymously and to the New York Times. Fox has not commented beyond that initial statement announcing that they, quote, were agreeing to part ways and thanking him for his service. It did not respond to a request for comment on Tuesday on the contents of Mr. Carlson's unredacted message. So the New York Times is saying Fox wouldn't give us a comment, but of course, everything that I just read you came from Fox. It's borderline lying to say that Fox hasn't commented on this, Fox wouldn't comment when asked, when they know that all of this came from Fox. It remains unclear, says the New York Times, how the text escaped more notice earlier, given that the Fox legal team was aware of it and other offensive texts written by Mr. Carlson. Fox's lawyers had produced the text as part of the discovery process and were involved in the redactions. Mr. Carlson had even been asked about it during a deposition, according to several people who have read the unredacted transcripts of his deposition. So the whole timeline doesn't make sense either. This text was produced as part of the litigation many months ago. The way that documents get produced in litigation is that the principals, people like Tucker Carlson or anyone involved in the lawsuit who are required to turn over information, go through their emails and they turn them over to Fox's lawyers. Fox's lawyers go through them, read through them carefully, decide which are privileged, which ones aren't, and which ones need to be turned over, and then turn them over. So of course Fox News' lawyers have seen this. And if it's true that it was going to be used by Dominion, and again, according to the New York Times article, Dominion's lawyers asked Tucker about it in his deposition many months ago, it strains credulity beyond all breaking points that Fox only learned about this within the last 10 days, and that was the reason for his firing. It makes absolutely no sense. Beyond the fact that how long now have people like the New York Times and liberal media outlets been accusing every Fox News personality of being a racist and a white supremacist? Going back to Bill O'Reilly and Glenn Beck and Laura Ingraham and Sean Hannity, everyone who works at Fox is instantly and inherently referred to as a white supremacist. Now suddenly they're so worried about that. Now, I believe we have the text itself.
Thanks for watching this clip from System Update. Catch our full shows for free, live weekdays at 7 p.m. Eastern on Rumble, and join our locals community at greenwald.locals.com for all of my written journalism, exclusive after-show Q&As, and more.